the artificial contriving of what beauty is through social media has perhaps morphed some of our cultural acceptance of what beauty means by making artificial expectations of perfection. This is Inside Out Dermatology with Dr. Julie Kenner, where we explore science, skin, and well-being. Welcome to Inside Out Dermatology. I'm your host, Dr. Julie Kenner, board-certified dermatologist, scientist, and formulator. This is a podcast where we dedicate a period of time to discuss the fascinating connections between skin and our internal health. And we're going to be exploring lots of different connections between all of our different organs. But today's episode is about the psychology of beauty and how our emotional wellness can tie in with our appearance and our sense of beauty. So a couple of episodes ago, we had a guest come in, and she had recently had an aesthetic procedure done. And she did discuss how this affected her confidence and why she underwent several procedures. She has actually had multiple. And so I thought it would be fascinating to delve a little bit more into this topic. Certainly, our sense of confidence, self-confidence, as well as beauty in general, has been embedded in our culture and ourselves as human beings for a very, very long time. But there's more to the interaction between how we look and how we feel that seems to have evolved since the advent of social media. And so I think it's important to distinguish between sort of our concept of beauty and attractiveness. Now, beauty itself can be described in somewhat mathematical or objective criteria, such as the surface skin being unblemished, having no freckles or scars or excessive pigmentation or redness and things like that. And then in terms of the mathematics, we can objectively see if the face is symmetrical or if it reaches certain criteria. We often use something called phi proportionality. It's often called the golden triangle. And this has been described by the Greeks thousands of years ago. And this is a very well-known aesthetic facial mathematical proportion. Facial thirds is another, etc. But then we can go into attractiveness. And I think we've all had the experience of meeting someone and feeling like that person is beautiful, but they may have some asymmetries. They may not have perfect skin quality. They may have other features that on the objective side of beauty perhaps would not be registered as perfectly aesthetic. But that person emits something within them that contributes to their beauty, and that seems to override. And that is our internal features. And this is what social media tends to forget. And so the artificial contriving of what beauty is through social media has perhaps morphed some of our cultural acceptance of what beauty means by making artificial expectations of perfection, and has somewhat downplayed perhaps a bigger part of beauty, which is our inner essence. And that inner essence is generally categorized as self-confidence, the way somebody holds themselves, a sense of genuineness or warmth and welcomingness, or a sense of confidence in a way that you expect that person to help, that helps you feel that they are an authority of some sort and you respect them. So all of these features contribute to beauty. And there's an interesting article that I came across recently that described something called the special theory of relativity of attraction. And it discussed this combination of genuineness, self-confidence, as well as physical beauty. And this combination seems to be much more impactful in terms of our overall genuine beauty to our fellow man. In my practice, I do procedures that are considered aesthetic, and people come in, and often they are they're wanting to meet certain social norms that they have seen through a variety of different media and are asking me to help them achieve that. And so, as a provider who's spent a lot of time thinking about not only the external part of beauty, but the internal part of beauty, I always counsel them on realistic expectations in terms of what we can achieve together. But also, I try to remind them that their inner confidence is contributing a great deal to their overall sense of beauty, both for others as well as themselves, and that to include that in their conversation about how they intend to project themselves. And so often patients coming just want a little bit of reassurance, and they almost don't know how to articulate how to be reassured as they get older that they still will have a portion of them that doesn't change over time. And that portion of themselves can be that inner sense of confidence and genuineness that they can emit and will always stay and will never really age. I will go over the objective measures of beauty, but I will also counsel them on being proud of who they are as they age and understanding that there are going to be physical changes as time goes on, and how we can best let them have improvements in their skin, not by giving them features that distort their own sense of self, but by improving their natural health of their skin and the natural proportions, getting them back as best we can, and giving them a sense that they have renewed their confidence. Now, there's interesting data to show that if you help a person with their aesthetics and get them some of the self-confidence back that might have waned, by just through encouraging them to have to remember that that's a portion of their beauty, that these individuals will actually have a greater improvement than if this conversation had not happened. So I always like to include that. Now, if a person looks at themselves in the mirror and sees a better version of themselves, this actually has a very interesting biofeedback on them, so that it's almost like a loop. And when they see themselves looking better, they actually regain this natural self-confidence that is exuded from them, and they will actually show more improvement in their skin biology. And this phenomenon was originally looked at by the psychiatrists who were using Botox to help their patients who were depressed not feel so depressed. And what was happening was when they treated the frown lines on these patients, and then the patients a couple of days later looked at themselves in the mirror and saw that these frown lines were gone, there was this natural biofeedback that the patients got this sense that if they didn't have a frown, they then were not so unhappy, and that then made them feel less depressed. So doing something to help somebody's appearance can actually have biological benefit that goes deeper than just the surface changes. So this can really affect our deeper psychology. And we know that oxytocin, which is a very important chemical of the brain, which is released, it's kind of called the happiness hormone. This is released when we do feel proud, self-confidence, happy, joyful, when we love others, when we hug. And this molecule then has beneficial effects on our skin quality. But if somebody can't afford to do certain things, like let's say they can't afford to do Botox or anything else, I try to counsel them on some things that are important, but still perhaps within their budget. And at a minimum, I try to remind patients that you can do regenerative work on your skin for a relatively small budget. And one of my favorite products to recommend are retinoids. And retinoids have been studied now for more than 60, 70 years in terms of their ability to turn cells back into a more healthy version of themselves on all realms. These molecules bind to DNA and are able to regulate genes that have been turned off or altered by the sun. And I like to remind patients that your skin is a living canvas. It is the largest organ in our body. And doing something like that on a daily basis will actually help create a healthier skin surface. And I also try to remind my patients regularly, every single day in my practice, that healthy skin is inherently beautiful. Why do we love the skin of a baby, the skin of a young person who has not had excessive sun exposure? This skin is inherently healthy, and healthy skin is beautiful. So every day in my practice, I also get patients coming in and they want to have better looking skin. And particularly for the women, I find that sometimes they have to feel like they have to justify why they have to look better. And I tell them that it's okay. You're not being vain, because they'll say to me, "Oh, well, I know I should just, give in to my wrinkles and age gracefully. And I know I've earned every wrinkle, and I know I shouldn't be vain, but I do want my skin to look a little bit better." And I stop them right there and I say, "Look, you should not be judging yourself for wanting to have nicer looking skin. This is your right. You're okay to do that. It's perfectly fine. I like to have my skin look nice too." But what I want to let people know is that if you reframe the question or the situation as just saying, "I want to have healthier skin," um, you will get beautiful skin as a consequence of that reframing and addressing the skin in a way that creates this healthier state. So you don't always have to fight yourself and say, "Okay, I shouldn't be vain. I shouldn't be vain." You just reframe it and you say, I want to be healthy. And when you do that, you create a healthier surface for yourself. And so that is a very empowering thing for people, because it releases them of the guilt of wanting to get their skin looking better. And so I always like people to do things in balance too. So I have patients coming in sometimes with grocery bags of skincare products, or who've had facelift after facelift after facelift. And I like people to understand that we all are aging. We want to live to a ripe old age, ideally, healthily. But I also tell them that, nobody um, needs to go down an area where their beauty is all that they can think about. And so there is an element of just balancing that physicians who are in the aesthetic world need to keep in mind, in that we have a duty to keep our patients also in balance with regards to their mental wellness. And when something is done to excess, where it's really taking all their resources, taking all their time to change their appearance, that perhaps there's a mismatch in their mental wellness. And this needs to be addressed perhaps first, and then have the skin be addressed after that. So there's balance in everything in life. And beauty is a balance of both our mental and our physical. And it's important not to get caught up in social media or artificial external expectations for beauty, but to recognize that there's a lot of inherent beauty and power within all of us, and that doing some aesthetic procedures, if that is desired, is perfectly fine as we age, and that this is that there are more and more less invasive procedures that can be done quite well, that can rejuvenate and renew the cells into a healthier state, and that healthy skin is beautiful.